Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today are the San Antonio Spurs trying to erase Kawhi Leonard's legacy? What are we talking about? Well, last week, the San Antonio Spurs selected Dylan Harper with the second overall pick in the NBA draft. And we're starting to figure out with all these new NBA draftees, what jersey number are they going to be wearing on the next level? And, well, the Spurs and Dylan Harper kind of got a lot of eyeballs and turned a few heads with the jersey selection that he is going to be wearing next year, as you guys can now see on your screen. Dylan Harper will be wearing number 2 for the Spurs, a number last worn by Kawhi Leonard in 2018. Why is this so significant, guys? This is significant because this means the San Antonio Spurs will not be retiring Kawhi Leonard's number. And this is, in a way, it's kind of shocking because if you really think about the greatest San Antonio Spurs basketball players of all time, Kawhi Leonard's one of the first names you bring up. Obviously, he doesn't have the legacy of a guy like Tim Duncan. He doesn't have the legacy of a guy like David Robinson there. Guys like Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, George Gervin, those were Spurs for life type of guys. They spent a majority of their careers there. So he doesn't have the legacy of some of those guys. But Kawhi Leonard is debatably, arguably a top 30, 40 player all time in NBA history. And his best years of his career were with the San Antonio Spurs. That's where he won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, was first team all defense 3 different seasons. He finished the season with second in MVP voting, third in MVP voting another year. He made 2 first-team All-NBA appearances for San Antonio, won a Finals MVP in San Antonio. This is a team, at least as to the day I'm recording, the team that he has played with the longest amount in his career. I mean, it's going to end up being Clippers eventually by the time that his contract ends. But I mean, without Kawhi gets injured, you could probably do the math, and he probably is going to be having the most games that he ever played in his career as a San Antonio Spur, obviously depending how long he ends up playing. So this is just very, very interesting because you really think about, I also think it's important to mention what constitutes a jersey retirement, because if you go around the NBA, it really just kind of turns into what does the franchise ownership really want, because it's also too, it's team dependent. For some reason, for example, like the Minnesota Timberwolves haven't retired Kevin Garnett's jersey number, but this year we saw that the Brooklyn Nets retired Vince Carter's number, even though he never played in Brooklyn. And then the Toronto Raptors also retired Vince Carter's number. So it depends franchise to franchise. Obviously, too, a franchise like the Los Angeles Lakers is going to have higher standards than, let's say, the Toronto Raptors, because I just mentioned them, or like an Orlando Magic or a Charlotte Hornets. There's also other types of players that have, just been role players. You don't necessarily have to be a Hall of Fame type player to get your jersey retired. For example, like the Spurs have Avery Johnson's jersey retired. The Oklahoma City Thunder have Nate McMillan's jersey retired. So there's a lot of different ways to get your jersey retired. And this Kawhi Leonard situation here, with him, most certainly not getting his jersey retired in San Antonio, made me think of 2 other guys, because we've covered them talking about, their legacy and them maybe getting their jersey retires, or in Carmelo Anthony's case, not getting his jersey retired in Denver. And that's Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. And I think they're very similar here to Kawhi Leonard, because I think a huge part of how you can get your, jersey retired. And I know in the moment with all these NBA players, if you're wanting to go to a new destination, you're not necessarily thinking like, oh, well, like in 15 years, this is me acting like an a-hole on my way out of here is going to make it so I don't get my jersey retired. But similarly to Kawhi, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, they had really, I don't know if you could probably say some of them were more ugly than others, but in a way, they were all kind of ugly messes on how they all asked out. Carmelo Anthony had a really good team in Denver, and then he asked out, and then he's the thing that's annoying me about Carmelo, he's just coming back 15 years later and just like rewriting history. And he's like, no, I actually wanted to win. That's why every single time in my career when I could have tested free agency and went to a better winning situation, I just re-upped my contract because I wanted more money. Anyway, we'll digress from that point. Paul George was flirting with the Lakers for like 4 straight years before he ultimately got traded to Oklahoma City. And Kawhi was kind of doing the same thing as Paul George, where he basically sits out for a season. The Spurs really don't have that much information. They're like, hey, we think he's healthy to play. Kawhi is like, no, I'm not. Basically forces his way out of San Antonio. And at least like what it seems like to me with this San Antonio Kawhi situation, this is where I want Spurs fans to come into the chat and tell me what you guys think about Kawhi, his legacy with the San Antonio Spurs, because the fact that this is a bitter move here by the San Antonio Spurs, because the difference between, a Kawhi, a Paul George, a Carmelo Anthony, the difference between all of those players, Kawhi way better than those dudes. Kawhi's way better than those dudes. Kawhi won a championship with the San Antonio Spurs. He was final MVP for the San Antonio Spurs, and there's only, 4 different guys in San Antonio Spurs history that have gotten Finals MVP. It might be 3. You guys are going to have to correct me on that, because I know Duncan got one, or got a few. Parker got one, Kawhi obviously. Maybe it's just 3. So like Kawhi is just way better than all of these guys, and I wonder if this bitterness from the people, because this is bitterness from the people running the Spurs. I don't know who has the power. I don't know if it's an ownership. I don't know if it's R.C. Buford. I don't know if it's El Jefe. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. But this is a clear bitterness from these guys, and I wonder if they're thinking this, because I was going through some San Antonio Spurs history today, and I wonder if the people that are having these conversations that none of us will ever hear inside the San Antonio Spurs building are looking at Kawhi Leonard, looking at the time that he left in his career, looking at the 2 seasons that they had him last healthy, where they're, we had the Zaza Pachulia game. They also lost in the conference semifinals to a really good Oklahoma City Thunder team. That was the year that the Thunder blew we had the 3-1 blown leads in the conference finals, and NBA finals. And I wonder if they're thinking like, Toronto won in 2019. If we had a healthy Kawhi that year, maybe that's us hosting up the trophy. If we had Kawhi stay in San Antonio, maybe we win in 2019. Maybe in one of these other years, whether it's 2020, whether it's 2021, whether it's 2022, maybe we have a few other rings. Maybe we have 6, 7, 8 rings right now. Because you could say, hey, even though Kawhi's tenure with the Spurs has been troublesome because of his injuries that has prevented him from being on the court, they probably think internally in San Antonio, hey, we had a way better situation here. We found DeJounte Murray out of nowhere. We found Derek White out of nowhere. We kept finding diamonds in the rough. And all we needed here was a superstar. And we had that in Kawhi. But he had other plans. He wanted to go live in Los Angeles. He didn't want to take this winning stuff seriously. If he wanted to take winning stuff seriously, he would have stayed in San Antonio. That's probably what the guys running the Spurs think. And I mean, they're kind of right too, because he won a title in Toronto and then dipped. He dipped to go hang out with Paul George. Like, that's where I want to know, Spurs fans. That's what I want to know. How do you guys feel about this? Because Kawhi did you guys dirty by leaving. Because even too, we brought up the Carmelo and Paul George examples earlier. I mean, we had the Paul George NBA Finals this year. Like the Pacers benefited tremendously from trading away Paul George. The Nuggets, didn't get to an NBA Finals or anything, recently after Carmelo Anthony left, but they still got some pretty nice players from that deal. All the Spurs got was DeMar DeRozan and Jakob Poeltl and a pick that became Keldon Johnson. It was a light return. So that's what I want to know, Spurs fans. Are you guys upset at this? Do you not care at all? Do you guys still have harsh feelings for Kawhi? Because he is a guy that did win an NBA championship with you guys, and you did have some really fun teams. I know it ended badly, but the difference between Kawhi, I guess another difference between Kawhi, Paul George, and Carmelo is if he don't get his number retired in San Antonio, I don't think Kawhi care at all, homie. I don't think the Claw cares at all. I think he could care less. We know Toronto's going to retire his jersey. I'm sure the Clippers are probably going to do it too at some point if he finishes his career there. So I don't think Kawhi cares at all. But again, Spurs fans, sound off in the comments. Would love to hear you guys' thoughts on this. So that's going to do it for this episode here today. If you like this episode, make sure you hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment. Like I said, doing all those things is the best thing to help support this channel. It costs you absolutely $0, and it helps us out tremendously in the algorithm. We actually had just one of our best weeks ever with getting views. So I love you guys if you're returning watchers of this show, listeners of this show, and you're tuning in again. Again, hit like, leave a comment, subscribe, watch other videos on the Sports Detective Podcast channel page. And thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next time.